Hi, it's Penny here, and today I wanted to go through with you an article that Goodreads recently put up where they've put together the 72 most popular science fiction books from the last 3 years. They have actually also put up an article for the 72 most popular fantasy books, but I think I'm going to do a separate video to go through those ones. But what I thought I would do is basically go through these, work out which ones I've read, whether I think they deserve their popularity, and then also for the ones that I haven't read, I thought we'll try and work out which ones I should try and read. So, now I should say, what I like about this article is that it is based on maths, but I'm also a little bit suspicious of whether it's entirely based on maths, because the way that they describe it does leave a little bit of leeway for perhaps some publishers to have paid something to like bump themselves up. But generally it seems to say that it's based on users adding these books to their want to read shelves. So basically they count a book as popular if lots of people have either read it or said that they want to read it. Now it's worth noting that that could still mean that like millions of people have read a book and rated it 1 star, but because so many people have read it, it still counts as popular. So popularity doesn't always mean good. And as I said, I always have conspiracy theories about these kind of articles that Goodreads puts together because, of course, this is an opportunity for publishers to publicize their books. So I always wonder whether there's some secret dealings going on. So what we're actually going to do is I've pulled the covers from all of these books quickly without looking at it too much into tier maker, and we're going to do a tier ranking. So the categories that I've gone with is, firstly we've got I read it and I loved it. Then we've got read it whatever, which is not necessarily that it was bad, just that I read it, it wasn't my favorite. I might not think about it too much again in the future. And then lastly we've got read it yuck, which is one that I've read and I actively disliked it. Then the sections for the ones I haven't read, we've got ones which I'm currently keen to read and planning to read. Then we've got ones that I'm maybe willing to try, even though I'm not that excited about them. And then lastly, ones that honestly I'm not interested in reading. However, what I do think is I'll start by just putting some in there, and then maybe at the end we'll look into them a little bit more. And of course, if you think I put any in no thanks that you really think I should be considering reading, I would love you to tell me that down in the comments. I think what I will do is, after I made this video, I will go away and read some of these books, and then we can come back and see whether the ones that I was less interested in actually surprised me and were worth the hype. So there's 72 books, so we should just get into this and see how we go. So firstly, we've got A Boy and His Dog at the End of the World. Honestly, the cover is ugly. The title, the end of the world part, kind of interests me, but I need more to really pull me in. So this one at the moment is a no thanks. I'm not really interested. I've never seen anyone talk about this, so yeah. The next one, A Memory Called Empire. This one I haven't read, but I have heard about it, and I think I had marked it want to read. I think there's some kind of memory manipulation thing going on there. Wait, is this the one where someone's memories are like passed on through kind of their job? Like a political diplomat type role passes on the memories to the next person who takes the position. Honestly, I don't quite remember. We're not going to look up the synopsis for all of these because we won't have time. But this one, I think I'm keen to read it. I've seen a lot of people say good things about it. Okay, then we've got A Psalm for the Wild Bill. Now this one was one of my favorite books of 2021. So read it, loved it. It's a beautiful story about a tea monk finding his place in the world and a robot coming along out of the wilderness to help him. Love it so much. Definitely recommend it if you just want a really cozy, lovely read. Then we've got After the Flood. Honestly, ugly cover, no interest, never heard of it. Then also Afterland. Again, ugly cover, never heard of it. Maybe it goes above this. Maybe these go above because they're prettier colours, but still, never heard of them. Ugly, not interested. Axioms End, also ugly cover, never heard of it, not interested. It's probably one like end of the world type stuff, which I like, but yeah, never heard of it, not interested. Now, Blue Ticket. I feel like I've seen someone talk about this recently, and I don't remember anything about it, but I think they said something interesting. So I would probably say I'm willing to try. I always find it interesting when just having heard a book's name makes me more interested in it. Even if like I can't remember whether that person that talked about it said good things or bad things. At least I know somebody's talking about it and somebody was interested in reading it at some point. Because you've got to find ways to filter out books earlier, right? Because you can't possibly look up the synopsis for every single book that's coming out. So people would say don't judge a book by its cover, but sometimes we've got to do it to get through the list. So that's what we're doing here. Constance. Honestly, boring title, ugly cover, no interest. Then we've got Dead Silence. So this one I believe is like a horror sci-fi. I have seen a few people read it lately, and I've seen people say both positive and negative, but I think I've seen more positive than negative. So I'd be interested in reading it because I have been meaning to get into more horror. But also, I feel like Blue Ticket was a weirder synopsis, even though I don't remember the synopsis exactly. I remember kind of thinking, oh, that sounds weird and intriguing. Whereas Dead Silence, I don't think I heard anything weird and intriguing about it. So it can go there. Then we've got Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. I love N.K. Jemisin, and I've heard this is like a short novella, I think. So I'm definitely keen to read that at some point. Then we've got Exhalation by Ted Chiang. I read this last year, I think. Ted Chiang writes short stories. This is the second short story anthology by him I've read. Really loved it. He just writes really amazing stories that feel really real and look at how science could potentially impact like our humanity. I love his stories. And I'm really sad that he hasn't written more short story anthologies yet, because I would love some more of his work. Then we've got Neil Stephenson, Fall. Honestly, I have heard of Neil Stephenson before. I've seen the name around, but the covers just always look really boring to me, and like they kind of look like crime novels to me. So I'm kind of surprised that it's here on science fiction. If you're a Neil Stephenson fan, please try and convince me to give this one a go. Then we've got Followers. Now this one, I do really like the cover. However, the title suggests to me that it's a story about like social media and its impact on society. And just in general, those topics don't interest me. I have seen a few that were interesting. I actually really like some Black Mirror episodes around that topic. But every book that I've read around the topic of social media, I've been quite dissatisfied with, so probably I'm not interested, even though it is a very beautiful cover. Then we've got Frankenstein. I'm probably willing to try this. I don't know much about it. I think I've seen it somewhere. I do really like Frankenstein, so I'm keen for a Frankenstein retelling, even though I feel like the title implies romance, but the cover also is giving me horror vibes, so you know, maybe I'm even more interested in it than Dead Silence. No, if the romance part puts me off, but we'll put it there. Okay, then we've got Gideon the Ninth. Now, this one, I am willing to try this. I do have the ebook for it. I wasn't very interested. I felt like just the vibe I was getting was kind of Red Rising, Nevernight kind of vibes, and I don't know, like a revenge kind of idea. I feel like I have no evidence or no reasoning for where I got these ideas, or like no memory of where I got these ideas, but I just feel like it's going to be violent, and I heard some bad things about the writing, so I wasn't sure if it was for me. However, I heard Pierre Ford say that it has like New Zealand Australian humor in it, or like vibes in it, and that can definitely go either way for me, but it did make me interested, and it is a New Zealand author, so I would like to support her. So I think I'm going to try it. I'm a little bit worried I'm not going to like it, but I think I'm going to try it. Then we've got Girl One, and honestly, that is the ugliest cover out of all of them. Not interested. Then this one, I don't actually feel confident about what the title is because of the way that the cover is drawn. I think it's Here and Now and Then. I do tend to like time travel-y stuff, time twisty time stuff, which is what the cover looks like it's about. However, I did read another book by Mike Chen that I wasn't super keen on, so I think I'm willing to give it a go, but I'm somewhat nervous that I'm not going to like it just because I haven't liked the author's previous work that I read. Okay, next we've got How High We Go in the Dark. This is one where I remember seeing people talk about it. I think Books and Lala read it. I can't remember if she liked it. I think she liked it. I do think the cover is pretty, and so I'm probably willing to give it a read, even though I don't even know what it's about. But it's a pretty cover, you know? Again, you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but a pretty cover will do it. Especially if I've also heard good things about it. So I guess, like, the next one is also one where I really like the colours on this cover. But, honestly, it's called Hummingbird Salamander. I mean, I like hummingbirds and salamanders, but it doesn't tell me what it's about. I have been meaning to read something by Jeff Vandermeer, but probably I would choose to start with something else before I would start with this, because I haven't heard anything about this. So even though this has a pretty cover, at the moment, I'm not interested in it. Okay, then we've got Kaiju Preservation Society, and I have actually followed John Scalzi on Twitter for many years now. I don't really even remember when I started following him. And like, he's okay. Sometimes his sense of humor doesn't gel with mine, but mostly I've enjoyed following him. But I do think his sense of humor will feed into his books, and so I've never really felt the need to read any of his books. And like monsters fighting, kaiju fighting, honestly, not really interested. Then we've got Clara in the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. I read this. I liked it. I don't quite know if I can say I loved it, because even though there were lots of elements of this that I really loved, there were also some parts of it that I was kind of dissatisfied with. I think partly because I read Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, and that one I feel like had a lot of really similar themes. And so I found dissatisfied that it was kind of going over the same material in some ways, even though it did do things in new ways. But I've seen other people say they really loved it because it covered a lot of the same things as Never Let Me Go. So, you know, I feel like I would put this in, read it, whatever, not my favorite. But I would probably recommend it to other people in the right circumstances. Like, it was still fine. But I definitely recommend Never Let Me Go over that one. Then we've got Light from Uncommon Stars, and honestly, books that just look like space books aren't that interesting to me. Then we've got a Star Wars book. I did really like Star Wars when I was a kid. In fact, my first crush ever when I was 5 was a boy called Luke, and he would pretend to be Luke Skywalker and I would pretend to be Princess Leia. We didn't know about the whole brother-sister thing, but we had a lot of fun. And just, yeah, I liked Star Wars when I was a kid. I still like it. I've watched all the movies, but what I'm kind of afraid of with the books is that there's so many, and I don't know if I pick up any particular book, whether just having watched the movies is going to be enough background to read this book. So even though I really like the cover on this, kind of quite bright and vibrant, but like, it's Star Wars, so probably not interested. Unless someone could give me an education on the Star Wars books, that might make me be willing to give it a go. But also, I've been trying to get to series 0, so starting a big new series with like 1 billion books in it sounds like a bad idea. Could I just read one book and have that be just the only book I need to read? I feel like the answer is no, and that's why I'm scared of picking up one of these books. Okay, then we've got Machines Like Me. Now, that sounds like it's going to be kind of an AI-based book, which often AI characters do interest me. But honestly, that guy is just so ugly that I don't really want to read it. And I don't think I've heard anyone talk about it, so that's a no from me. Then we've got another Star Wars one. Honestly, same kind of story, except that also the cover from this one looks particularly boring. And so I'm probably even less interested in reading that one than I am the other one. Then we've got another Neil Stephenson book. This one's called Termination Shock. Honestly, just looks the same amount of boring as the other one. Then we've got One Word Kill by Mark Lawrence. I read The Book of the Ancestors by Mark Lawrence. It probably wasn't my favorite, but there were some elements of it that I really loved. And so for that reason, I probably would be willing to try something else by Mark Lawrence, even though I don't know anything about that one. Then we've got Persephone Station. This one, you know, I would be willing to try it. The problem is, I actually used to have this on my want to read list, mainly because the cover just looks badass and I wanted to read it, but I've only heard terrible reviews of it. So I guess I have to put it right down the end, but I'd probably be willing to try it just because if it turned out that I did like it, then it's a cool cover, so I could buy a copy and I could have a cool, beautiful book. You know, if a book has a beautiful cover, I'm willing to give it a go. More than I am if it has an ugly cover. It's not fair, but that's the way it is. Then we've got Polaris Rising. This one, I'm probably not interested because I've never heard of it. However, I'd probably put it at the top because it is a really beautiful book, again. The colours are really nice, and we've kind of got this girl here who looks a bit badass. So, you know, it's not a bad looking book, but I've never heard of it, and it doesn't really give me enough to want to read it. Then we've got Project Hail Mary. This I read recently, and it's probably on the border between loved it and whatever. However, I did really enjoy the emotional journey of it. I feel like there's some logical elements of it that kind of got on my nerves that didn't entirely make sense, but for the most part, I could put that aside and just focus on the fact that this emotional journey just kind of carried me through it. I read it so fast. I had a great time with the book. So I think I would say I loved it. Then we've got Rabbits. Now I have seen this, I think primarily when Kayla from Books and Lila has been talking about her rabbit cover reading vlog. Honestly though, I know nothing else about it. And like, do I want to read a book about rabbits? I'm sure it's not a book about rabbits, but just in general, I've never heard anyone say anything that made me want to read it. Then we've got Recursion by Blake Crouch. So I really like Blake Crouch's stuff, especially Twisty Time stuff. I think Dark Matter was a little bit more consumable. Recursion was a little bit harder to understand, but I really enjoyed it. I liked that mental challenge that it provided. It was a good story. So Recursion, read it, loved it. Definitely recommend it. Oh, and then Remote Control is another one that I really loved. It's more of an emotional journey again about this girl with this dark power kind of trying to find her place in the world. Then we've got Riot Baby. Riot Baby's a little bit hard because I don't know. Like, I think I gave it 3 stars in the end. The concepts were really interesting, but I really didn't like the way it was written and the way it was structured. I can definitely see that other people would like it though, so I think that's why I gave it 3 stars. Like, I didn't necessarily love it, but like, it was fine, whatever. I would recommend it to other people in the right circumstances. Then we've got Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Now, I'd heard a bit about Emily St. John Mandel books previous to this one having come out and hadn't quite been convinced to read them. However, this one, I believe, has some Twisty Time stuff in it. And I've heard it links into 2 of her other books. Maybe not fully, but like that there's some characters that are across them. So I probably want to read them all now. So probably I would say this one, I'm keen to read. It's on my to-read list. I'm definitely going to read it at some point. I love that Twisty Time stuff. So if I hear someone say good things about a Twisty Time book, it's going on the list. Then we've got Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky. Now, I know he has one series, something to do with space spiders. Again, space stuff doesn't really interest me, but I have heard good things about Adrian Tchaikovsky. But I also just don't know if anything I've heard has made me think it would be for me. So I'm probably not interested. Then we've got Tell Me an Ending. And I have to say, I like this cover quite a lot, but I've never heard of it. But I think I'd actually put it up the top of like no thanks. Like, not interested, but maybe I'll look it up and we'll see if I could be convinced to be interested because it is a nice cover. I like it. Then we've got The Anomaly. Now this one, it's kind of weird because the title almost makes me feel like I might like it, but something about the format makes me think it's going to be somewhat religious. Is that unjustified? Do I have any reason for thinking that? No, but I just feel like maybe I won't like it. It's just gut feel. It's very hard to explain why you make cover decisions like this sometimes, but I've never heard of that either, so it can't go that high. The Apollo Murders, honestly, super ugly cover. Never heard of it. Then we've got the Book of Coley. So I haven't read this, but this is by Emma Carey, and I really loved The Girl with All the Gifts by Emma Carey, the sequel, The Boy on the Bridge, and also Someone Like Me by Emma Carey. All of those were really great, so I feel confident that I would like another book by Emma Carey, and I have been meaning to pick this up at some point. I've just, again, been avoiding picking up new series, so I haven't picked it up yet, but I am very interested in that series. Okay, then we've got The Candy House, and honestly, what an ugly cover. It's giving me vibes of being like a technology type story, but honestly, it's just ugly. I have no interest in it. Then we have The City in the Middle of the Night. Something about that title does interest me. I couldn't really tell you what it is, and I've never heard of that, but I would probably put it like there. I'm kind of interested for the vibe. I don't know why. Then we've got The Dreamers. This one I have seen before. I have it on my to-read list. Some kind of like dream stuff going on. Weird dreams, like people getting stuck in their dreams. I love stories about dreams, so I'm definitely interested in that one. Then we have The Echo Wife, which I've read and I really loved. It's like a clone-based story and kind of looking at what it is that makes us who we are. Probably it goes there. Definitely recommend it. Then we've got The End of Men, and honestly the title is interesting, but the cover is ugly. So we're probably going to put it like here. Then we've got The Farm. I think I've seen someone talk about this. It kind of gives me the vibes of like a human baby farm, which kind of grosses me out. But it's kind of a beautiful cover like this one. Probably it's more of an interesting topic than that one. Maybe it goes like here. I don't think I'm really interested in a baby farm type book. Then we've got First Sister. Now this one, I don't know anything about it, but I feel like I've seen somebody talk about it and say like a big rave about it. So I'd be willing to give it a go, even though I don't know anything about it. And probably, I put it like there, maybe here. I don't remember enough about it to put it any higher. Then we've got The Future of Another Timeline. This is a twisty time travel book. I don't remember exactly what it's about, but I do remember it's on my to-read list. I just love that twisty time stuff, you know? Then we got The Hidden Girl. Never heard of it. The book looks like a non-fiction cover to me. Not really interested, but maybe it can go this high. You know, The Hidden Girl is almost interesting, but just not quite. The Last Watch also just looks boring. It's just ugly. Ugly and boring. Not interested. Then we've got The Light Brigade. This is a hard one because I almost want to say I loved it. This is one where there's elements of it that I did love. It's a twisty time, kind of space military world where the corporations have taken over the world. The concepts were good. I just felt like the structure was a little bit unsatisfying in the end. So probably it goes at the top of Reddit whatever. Like I didn't love it, but like I almost loved it. Then we've got The Loop. I'm pretty sure this is twisty time stuff. I'm not sure if I'd say I'm keen to read it, but I would expect to like it. So I'm probably quite willing to try it. Then we've got The Luminous Dead. It looks like a horror sci-fi again, but honestly it looks boring. The Ministry for the Future. This is another one where something about the cover makes me think of it as like some kind of religious sales book. Ministry for the Future. I probably put it next to The Anomaly because it feels very similar to me for some reason. Honestly, ugly, not interested. It kind of does hint at time travel stuff, but the cover's just so ugly. I can't do it. Then we've got The New Wilderness. That one just, it kind of looks boring, like some kind of literary fiction, which I generally don't feel smart enough to read, even though, again, why do I believe that? I don't know. I have liked some literary fiction, so maybe at some point I'll get into more literary fiction, and I don't even know if that's what this is, but that's what the vibes the cover gives me, and it doesn't give me anything that I'm interested in. The next one though, Paradox Hotel, that sounds like twisty time stuff, so we are keen. But the cover is kind of ugly, so we might still put it like here. Then we got The Passengers by John Mars. This is like a self-driving car thriller sci-fi. It's a lot of fun. I don't know that I would say I loved it. It's not a favorite, but I did really like it. I would definitely recommend it to people. So probably that goes at the very top of Reddit, whatever. Like, not a favorite, but I did enjoy it a lot. Then we've got The School for Good Mothers. This one, honestly, the cover again looks boring and kind of literary. I'm not really interested. Okay, then we've got The Space Between Worlds. I did read this one, and it's twisty time stuff, so you might think that I loved it. However, it's kind of also a dystopian, and even though there is this multiverse stuff going on in it, it focuses more on the dystopian, and I felt like that dystopian felt like a much younger targeted story, and I just wasn't into it. But I don't know that I would say it was yuck. It just wasn't my favorite. But I might recommend it more than Riot Baby. Maybe. We're nearly there. So then we've got The Starless Crown. Honestly, kind of boring looking. Looks like more of a fantasy than a sci-fi, but I kind of believe that it's a sci-fi, but I'm not that interested. But the cover is okay. It probably goes like here. Then we've got The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. I love this. It's like a short little novella about this person taking a test to get into the UK, I think. It's been a while since I read it, and the test goes in directions you might not expect. It asks some really interesting questions. It is very short though, but I do recommend that. Then we have The Vanished Birds. This is another one which is twisty time stuff. I learned about it at the same time as I learned about the future of another timeline, so we'll put those together. Definitely interested in reading both of those. Then we've got The Warehouse. Now, I've never heard of this, but something about it is giving me vibes of like one I think I was going to read called Quality Land, but then I think I just never got to that and I heard mixed things. This kind of gives me the same vibes, except it looks less interesting. So I'd probably put it like, why is the farm above that? I'm sure the farm's meant to be down here. Yeah, I think so. And this one is probably, I kind of don't want to split those two up because I feel like they belong together. Maybe we'll put it here. Then we've got This Is How You Lose the Time War. This one, I think it was one of my favorite books of 2020. Not sure what year, but I love this book. It probably belongs way up here. These two could have a battle. I'm not sure which one would win. It's a beautiful time travel book. Just the vibe of it is flawless. Definitely recommend that one if you just want a book with beautiful writing and you're not going to get too hung up on understanding all of the science, because that is not the point of that book. Then we've got This Time Tomorrow. So this is another one that gives me like literary fiction vibes. I think it's the bright colors. But This Time Tomorrow also does sound like it might be twisty time stuff. So maybe I would actually put it like here. Then we've got To Be Taught If Fortunate by Becky Chambers. Now, I have only read A Psalm for the Wild Book by Becky Chambers, and I have said I would read some more by Becky Chambers, so I'm definitely willing to try this. And it's probably quite high because I love the other book by Becky Chambers so much, but I'm also afraid because just what I've heard about her other books doesn't make me confident I'll love it. Like, I feel like I loved A Psalm for the Wild Book just because the characters felt so relatable to me, but I did also really like the writing style, so there's a good chance I'd like Becky Chambers. I'm willing to try some more. Then we've got To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini. Honestly, I don't even remember if I got through the whole Eragon series. If I did, I speed read through the audiobooks and I didn't really remember any of it. And I haven't heard great things about To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. Also, the book is fucking massive, so big. So I would have to hear great things about it to be willing to attempt that. And I have not heard great things. So probably it belongs down here. Then we've got Upgrade by Blake Crouch. I've mentioned Blake Crouch already. I really love Blake Crouch, and I am going to be reading this book soon. It's just come out, I think, recently, but I have a hold at the library, so as soon as I get that, I'm going to read it. So probably that goes right at the top. And then we've got Wanderers. This one is a pandemic book. A lot of people were talking about it when COVID was becoming a thing, and I am actually keen to read some pandemic books, so I'm going to put this probably around here. I've heard a lot of really good reviews, so that's a good sign. Then we've got We Could Be Heroes. So this is by Mike Chen. I was talking about him before when I was talking about this one. You know, this wasn't terrible, but I just got really bored. I feel like it had a really great concept of these people with superpowers, one using them for good, one using them for evil, and then they're working together to try and recover their memories and work out how they've ended up in the situation they're in. But just the whole middle of the book, nothing was happening and I was bored to death. So I kind of have to say read it yuck, I think. I want to say I would still recommend it to the right audience, but honestly I was so bored through most of it that I think it would be dishonest not to say yuck. I feel mean. Then we've got Winterworld. Honestly, this looks really boring, like these Neil Stephenson ones, but actually worse. Maybe it even goes further down. I don't know. It's giving me nothing. Then we've got Winter's Orbit, another winter book. This one, the cover is beautiful. The cover is beautiful. Probably goes up somewhere up here just because the cover is beautiful. Maybe I'll put it with Polaris Rising because those covers are giving me very similar vibes. Okay, so this is all the books. Let's see what we've learnt here. We can see from the books that I have read, there's actually not that many, like 14 books of the 72 I've read. What's that percentage? Why am I bad at maths? 20%? 19.5%? That's not too bad. And what I would expect is that these are the books that I selected for me. So these should be a better match than the ones that I've said I wouldn't be interested in reading. So what I think I'll do is read some of these and we'll see whether I really am better at picking. Like, you can kind of see there's a ratio here. So if I read some more of these, you'd think the same ratio or worse would happen. if I read some of these that I'm less interested in. I definitely would expect all of these ones that I've put in being keen to read to be ones that I would love. So maybe these are my 5-star predictions, although I'm very stingy with giving out 5 stars, so that's probably not true. I don't even know if I gave all of these 5 stars. Nope, I didn't, because I didn't give Project Hail Mary 5 stars. But still, I loved all of these books, so hopefully I'll love all of these ones. These ones, I would hope that they at least get to the whatever level. These ones, if I read them, I'd be very afraid that they would turn up in the yuck section. But what I am going to do now is I'm going to go and read the synopsises for these ones on the top row. And then based on that, we'll see if we want to bump any of them up. So give me a moment to do some reading. Okay, so I have looked at the synopsises of these, and the ones that I'm going to bump up is Tell Me an Ending. Actually sounds quite interesting because it's giving me like the Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind vibes, where there's characters that are getting their memories wiped and then people are getting notifications that they've had their memories wiped, even those people of course have no memory of having done that. Mainly because I love the Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, I'm putting this one up. The City in the Middle of the Night honestly gave me nothing from the synopsis, so probably that gets bumped down now. Polaris Rising said something about being sexy, which is not my thing at all, so that probably bumps that down. I probably still, maybe to there, but not really interested in something sexy. Sexy space princess or something? Not my thing. Winter's Orbit sounded very military, but also kind of YA and like, no. The End of Men is about some kind of pandemic that only affects men. As I said, keen to read some pandemic books, so I'll probably bump that one up. Light of the Jedi, it kind of sounded a bit military, and military is not generally my thing, so probably this is not the Star Wars book to start with if I was going to read a Star Wars book. Hummingbird Salamander, the synopsis was giving me nothing. This Time Tomorrow did sound still kind of literary, mostly about this girl going back in time and living her life again. So time stuff, but not really twisty. However, I have ever thought experiment to keep myself busy at times lately, been thinking about what I would change if I did live my life again. So I'm kind of interested to see what it does. I'm a little bit worried that it'll be more about like the particular characters rather than the actual technical issues you would have if you were living your life and trying to make things better, but we'll see. I feel like I'm willing to read it. The Anomaly talked about itself as being witty, and honestly that doesn't sound interesting to me, probably similar to what I would expect from the Kaiju Preservation Society. The Ministry for the Future just sounded like too much of a sales pitch in the synopsis and didn't really tell me what it was about. So even though it does sound like it might be some time stuff that I might be interested in, the synopsis just made me not interested. And lastly, The Warehouse. I actually hated reading that synopsis. The way it was written, the writing was not writing that I enjoy, and so definitely I feel like I can say I wouldn't enjoy that book. So we won't be reading that one. But this is just a really quick look at these books with quick looks over the synopsis. Most of them I've only looked at the covers and the titles and like seen whether I have some vague memory of them. So if there's any books you think that I've put in no thanks that I might actually love, try and convince me down in the comments to bump them up, give them a go. I'm not making any promises at this point. But what I would also be interested in is whether you have read any of these books. As I said, I've read 14, so can you beat me? Have you read more of these than I have? I feel like I read a fair amount of books, but I probably don't focus on reading really popular books. So I feel like if someone reads a lot of popular books, they probably would have read more of these than I have if they're into sci-fi. Perhaps there's a few too many ifs in there for someone to have read a lot of these books. But let me know how many you've read and whether you're interested in reading any of the other ones. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you are doing well, and I will see you next time.